Okay, so things got a little bit heavy last time, so let's have a nice, fun, goofy, silly episode with absolutely no political implications whatsoever. Right? Arachnids in the UK, or as it should have been called, spiders in Sheffield. So, episode 4, series 11 of Doctor Who. Probably the one I'm least impressed with overall. It feels very filler in a lot of ways. It feels filler in the same way that something like the Lazarus Experiment feels filler. It feels like they hit on a notion like, what's something the Doctor could deal with? Big spider? Yeah. How about a bunch of big spiders? How about like some big spiders and then like one really big spider? Yeah, sure, cool. Somebody go write that. I mean, that's what it feels like. It feels like something that was come up with in a room full of just people spitballing ideas. Then it got assigned to somebody. It was an idea that nobody had passion about. It was just something that they did because, you know what? We got to fill out an episode with something. And it's not bad. For being that. Actually, as far as that kind of episode goes, or at least episodes that have that vibe to them, it's probably one of the better ones, but generally when I get that vibe off an episode, it's a bad sign. So, oh boy, where do we start with it? Well, you know what, before I bitch, because I'm probably going to, mostly with this. Again, it's not awful. Performances are all pretty solid. I'm actually really... Graham is really growing on me quite a bit at this point. They do a really good job, I think, especially of justifying his decision to travel with the Doctor. With the other two, they're a bit more just like, well, we just kind of want to go. But honestly, that flies a bit more when the characters as young as they are. I mean, they're at that age where, you know, kind of on a whim, you go, hey, randomly, I've got the opportunity to travel Europe. Yeah, sure, I'll do that. You know, not to say all young people are like that, but like it's more believable as an element of being young and being youthful and being at that point in your life. Whereas somebody of Graham's age, you would expect him to be settling down. You'd expect him to have been having had those experiences. And the easy way to have him be like wanting to be in the TARDIS was like, well, he always lived at home. He never left the town to grow up with. That would have been the lazy way to do it. Instead, I like the whole idea of him going, look, I'm grieving, and I know the only thing that's going to help is time, and I kind of like the passage of that time to be filled with stuff like this. I like that quite a bit. So I dug that. I'm not in love with Yaz's family, but again, they're not actually bad. It just rings too many bells of the domestic stuff that I haven't liked in the past, like Rose's mother and Martha's family and Clara's family that time. I don't care for that stuff. I just don't. So I don't really care about them turning up. But again, if I set aside my own distaste for that sort of thing, it was fine. Ryan's solid. He's good. I like the energy that he brings. I feel like he didn't have quite as much to do in this one as the other two. But yeah, he brings a good energy to the group. I like that. Jodie Whittaker, honestly, I feel like she is clicking for me a little bit more every single episode. And I don't know if that's just because I'm getting more acclimated to her way of doing it, or if she's actually easing into the part a bit better. No idea, because I don't know what order these things were shot in, so who the heck knows. But I really get the sense, and I love the nature at which she approaches things, and I love, she feels very committed to the nonviolence, and I love that she's like, there's this giant spider, and she's just kind of like, okay, so you're not supposed to be here. Stay there, I'm gonna figure this out. Like talking to a spider. Stay there, I'm gonna figure this out. I like that. I like that, you know, there are a ton of weapons. That's an obvious solution. And she's like, nope. Not even an option. So I like that. It's funny also, one of the things that did come out of her interactions with Yaz's family that I actually liked, but it wasn't the family that I liked, it's what they brought out of her that I liked, which was that she seems to have retained Capaldi's tendency to basically just be rude, be rude through blunt honesty. But I think there's a key difference, which is that she does it with a smile, whereas Capaldi did it while being grumpy. So, she can say, "Oh, no, go ahead and make your horrible," I forget what the dish was, do you want me to go take care of this while you make your horrible food? It's just like, she's just trying to be helpful. And she's just saying what her understanding of the situation is. It happens to be rude, but that's kind of, she doesn't care. And not like in a Capaldi, I don't care about people's feelings way, but like it probably doesn't even register to her that was kind of rude, but not in a way that comes across like they're trying to ape like an autistic sensibility or anything like that. Like, because she's just so peppy and pleasant about it. I kind of like that. I like that balance of that accidental rudeness while removing the grumpiness that Capaldi's sort of version of that had. I think that's kind of cool. I like that. There's one thing Whittaker's doing that I really don't like, and this is nitpicky as hell, but I don't like the way she wields the sonic screwdriver. And like I said, this is super nitpicky, but there's something about the big exaggerated every time. She does it twice in this. She can't just point it. Has to be like once, fine, but when you do that, like every time you bust it out to open a door, like I want somebody to call her out on that. If she's got to keep doing that, I want one of the comedians to call out, do you have to do it with that big flourish every time? Because otherwise, that's really going to start to bug me if I'm just supposed to buy into that, because it's too much. So other than that, I mean, it's big spiders. What do you want? They're pretty well shot. They're pretty well handled, and they're pretty well built up as far as this sort of thing goes. They're fully functional. I'm sure if I was arachnophobic, which I'm not, I'm sure this actually would have a decent shot at properly scaring me, because they do build the tension towards the shots and the reveals of spiders at various points quite well. Again, though, it's not something I'm inherently afraid of, and the title says it all. Is like, so there's no surprise in this. Generally, stuff that actually scares me or unsettles me is where I can't quite wrap my head on what's going on, or there's something that is existentially scary about it. The empty child hits me on that level, but like it's big spider. I can wrap my head around that. That's not to say I wouldn't be terrified of a giant spider in real life, but like in entertainment, like no, I understand that too well to be scared by it. But they shot it and they handled it well enough. The explanation was really cheesy. Like, we're really just going with basically a toxic waste mutation. Is it 1985 again? Like that. Again, maybe it's just because it's Doctor Who. I'm not above that kind of schlocky explanation for something like a giant spider. It's just, it seems too played out. It seems too cliche, honestly. I was expecting something more ridiculous. Like, somehow something that had been going on, warped the sense of time, and the spiders had reverted to a more prehistoric state of being, or they had slipped through from an alternate dimensions where spiders were the dominant species of the planet, and they grew in accordance with it. Something a bit more, a bit less played out than mutated by toxic waste, which, I don't know. But then I'm really annoyed at even having to talk about this. The character of Robertson, I don't like him. And I don't like him because of how on the nose it is. And I'm actually really irritated at even having to talk about this. I'm especially irritated at having to talk about this coming off of Rosa, which, that episode put me through a bit. I had to do 2 videos on it. And I was looking forward to basically a palate cleanser. And they stick this in. So, okay. So we have an American businessman who owns a chain of hotels, who very much enjoys firing people, who skirts responsibility and is all about assigning people to do a task and just keeping as far away from the actual day-to-day execution of it as possible. He is eyeing a presidential run, makes an effort to point out he's not a politician, but he's a businessman who knows how to get stuff done. But it's okay because it's made canonically clear that, oh no, he's not a Trump analog. He's planning to run against Trump. He hates Trump. He's still a Trump analog. Okay? This is... You had him say fire and fury. It's painful. And I think part of the pain of it is that it is so specific. I don't have a problem with Doctor Who being political. I definitely don't have a problem with Doctor Who being allegorical. But, yeah, so, like, I really like episodes like Oxygen, which is a very blatant attack on the theoretical extreme of capitalism, which is... I mean, I think it's perfectly valid because it's not necessarily about capitalism is bad. Honestly, you can do that story with any form of any, way to live. You take it to an extreme, it becomes horrific. That's kind of what happens. But I like things like that. The execution had a lot of problems, but I like the concept behind something like the Zygon invasion inversion, where, we have we can draw the connections to immigrant stories, radicalized Muslims, and things of that nature. Like there's very clear connection, but it's not necessarily a one-to-one. It's highly applicable, but is also allowed to serve and function as its own thing. There's no reason for this guy to exist at all, much less the way he does, except to parody Trump. And that is unnecessary and stupid and annoying and distracting more than anything else. When he first showed up, my initial thought was, oh hey, it's Chris Noth, cool. And then the instant somebody mentioned, this could hurt you in 2020, I was like, oh god, no. And then they kept dropping more and more and more and more stuff, and I'm just going, just stop. Every time they did it, it took me out of it. And this is not an issue with any particular political stance this thing is or isn't taking. I honestly don't believe that it is taking a political stance. It's just poking fun at the most obvious traits of someone, while at the same time trying to go, oh, no, we're not making fun of him because we're establishing this is somebody. It's ham-fisted, it's unnecessary, it in no way feeds into anything else going on in the episode. It's completely superfluous, it's completely removable. I don't know why it's there. As much as I may take issue with some of the execution of things like the Zygon invasion inversion, I can look at that and go, there's a reason for those allegorical things, those connections, those implications to be there, because they impact the story. Nothing about this guy is actually relevant or impactful to the story. Logistically, the closest they come to justifying him is through the vertical integration of his businesses that causes this problem. Okay, but you didn't need that complicated explanation for toxic waste under a building, and it didn't have to be a hotel either. It could have been any building. Story would be completely unaffected. So my annoyance with this is partially its presence. And again, I don't have an inherent problem with the presence of political stuff in Doctor Who. I've outright flatly defended it before. But here, the reason it annoys me is because it has nothing to do with anything. It's not feeding into anything. It's not thematic of anything. It's just there, being clunky and annoying and awkward. And I hate it. I legitimately hate having to complain about something like this. And I really dread combing through the comments on reviewing this episode because of that character. And I can't make a case of, well, he's here because blah. If somebody else thought better of this character and his depiction and everything else, please explain to me why he needs to be there and why it helps the story. Because I can't think of it. I can't think of what he does that adds to it in any degree greater than the level of distraction and irritation that he brings. So, I'm really sorry to have ranted that long about this one specific element that I wish I didn't even have to friggin' talk about. But it's one of those things that took an episode that was otherwise fine. It even had some good elements. I don't think I was ever going to love this story. I don't think I ever was going to think this was some great piece of work, just because it's very, very much a Monster of the Week episode of Doctor Who. I tend to not love Monster of the Week episodes of Doctor Who, but it just sinks it down to a much lower level that there was no... This could have been breezy and silly and fun, and instead it's grating and annoying and irritating because of him, because of this one character. So, Arachnids in the UK, what did you think about it? Whatever your thoughts were, drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. Please keep it polite. Whatever your political stripe is, whatever you think about what the show is doing, whatever you feel, just no personal attacks against me, against other commenters, against the makers of the show. Just keep that to yourself, okay? I've had to clear out a lot more comments than is standard when dealing with Doctor Who episodes lately, so just pull it together, guys. Come on. If you can do that, drop something down in the comments and let's talk about it. So there's a whole bunch of stuff down there as well, because there's buttons and there's links, including a link to the Patreon if you feel like supporting me that way. But you know what? If you don't sweat it, because folks, at the end of the day, you are the council. I just run the meetings. And until next time, this council is adjourned.